You're with Julian on the Brown Note, and Peter Dutton just lost the next election. Joy beyond measure. Congratulations to Anthony Albanese. Normally, I don't post election giveaways until at least 3 months out, but I've got everyone right since Trump in 2016. Every time it's been against the prevailing media narrative of news polls saying it's so close and the Liberals could do it this time, and or so-and-so could do it this time. And they've been wrong, and I've been right. So, if you've read the news media lately, you'll have seen the media narrative saying that Peter Dutton is electable. Peter Dutton is pulling ahead in the polls. Honestly, only an idiot would actually, a special idiot that doesn't actually understand politics would actually say this. For a start, Australia's news media is relentlessly right-wing and pro-liberal. Outside of the ABC and SBS, every other major news source is virtually pro-liberal and always has been. Even like the Sydney Morning Herald have been relentlessly pro-liberal in their views. So they are very consistent in their spruiking of liberal chances in elections. The other thing is the polling. So this is all based on polling, which has proven to be wildly inaccurate when it's come to the elections. As I've said on this show, when I called it for Albanese weeks out, when I called it for Dan Andrews weeks out, and right down to the day before, Newspoll was saying about how there's this possibility that the Liberals will win, which is garbage. It's absolute rubbish. The other part of this is these are midterm polls. If you're trying to say that midterm polls have any relationship to someone being elected, you are either a con artist working for the polling companies or the newspapers trying to get clicks. This is the other thing about polls. A polling company cannot say there's been no change for the last 6 months. They need to constantly sell their wares by saying there's change every time they do a poll. And the same and it's in the interest of the newspaper to actually say that there's been change so they can have clicks. But none of that has any relevance to reality. But when it comes to midterm polls are when the public attack the incumbent government. And that's what it is. There is no public push towards Peter Dutton at all. There is public animosity to the incumbent government in the middle of a cost of living crisis. And that is it. Now, if Liberals were in any way to take solace from these polls, it would be that they were miles ahead. Not that they were neck and neck. A news poll is always garbage. That particular poll is rubbish. But if you look at something like the Roy Morgan poll, it's virtually neck and neck. And you would think after 2 years of a cost of living crisis, with the media on your back, that a Liberal Party that is doing nothing because they're in opposition, so therefore are a blank slate, will be miles ahead in the midterms, and I still wouldn't give it to them. To be neck and neck is terrible. Dutton is unelectable anyway as a human being, but he has lost the next election, and I'll tell you why. So the Liberals lost the last election for three main reasons. One is women. Their horrific, sexist, misogynist culture of the Liberal Party and their treatment of women. One is believing right-wing news media. Right-wing news media can never tell you that they are the reason that the Liberal Party loses an election because it would be saying that they were wrong. They were wrong. So they lost because they believed in right-wing populism. They look at the Trump model and that is it. That's as brainy as they get. And the other one's climate change. So they encouraged every Liberal Party voter, particularly female Liberal Party voters who didn't want to vote for Labour, to vote for candidates from the Climate 200 Action Group funded Teal candidates, which was basically every Liberal voter that hated Tony Abbott and Scott Morrison, who believed in action on climate change and gay marriage, who actually didn't like the incredible ingrained sexism of the Liberal Party. They all voted for the Teals. He is doubling down on all of those three things. It is absolutely amazing that that there's no one in the Liberal Party that has announced to say that right-wing populism keeps failing, whether it's at a state or a federal level in this country. It keeps getting rejected by the public. I mean, we couldn't, from being a lefty, we couldn't believe it when they actually greeted Scott Morrison's loss in the election by choosing the most right-wing populist leader that they could possibly choose in Peter Dutton. It was amazing to the rest of us, and we all cheered. But he's doubling down. He's not particularly known as being as aggressively misogynist as Scott Morrison, but he's presiding over a party that still has enormous, visible public pre-selection problems with women, which hasn't gone away. And I think when they look at someone like Peter Dutton, women are naturally apprehensive that he isn't particularly on their side, but not to the extent that Scott Morrison or Tony Abbott was. That's not the big deal. The big deal is that he has gone for the right-wing populist angle hard, with no substance behind it, going after immigrants, going after every target that the right-wing populists go for, no matter what the impact. And mainly, he has, for no reason at all, none, in a massive election-losing stance, reignited the climate change wars. Just because people that support climate change aren't as noisy as right-wingers in the populist right-wing news media doesn't mean that they're not a large chunk of the population. The Greens get a huge chunk of the vote at every election from people that don't think Labour are doing enough about climate change. If you think that these people, just because they're quieter, aren't out there voting, they are the silent majority, and a lot of them are Liberal voters who now vote for Teals. And there's now a massive push because of this nuclear energy push by Peter Dutton, which was a huge own goal from him that wasn't asked for. He didn't even need to bring it up. And he's got no way of defending it because he's saying, we're not going to tell anyone where these nuclear power plants are going to go. They're not going to be available for decades. They're going to cost billions of dollars of public money. There's no way of defending any aspect of it. But Australian public have shown time and again that they reject nuclear power as an option. There's just these micro forces that keep pushing the idea. Climate 200, the fundraising giant. So last time around, the Liberals lost 9 seats to Teals. Climate 200, the fundraising giant that bankrolled the Teal independent wave at the last election, has thrown support behind independent campaigns in 9 more coalition-held seats. After months of speculation, the group said it would support independent campaigns in Queensland, massively important. Several seats in Queensland. That is hugely important to the next election. And New South Wales. I was just looking for the bit where they mention nuclear power. There's no doubt that Peter Dutton's reignition of the climate wars has energised support for community independence. Last weekend we saw a 20-fold bump in donations, and the pace hasn't let up yet. So he's wed his flag to obviously the same anti-immigrant policies that John Howard was successful with, but no one else has really been successful with since. But with nuclear power, in an era when the silent majority in Australia actually supports action on climate change, and where the Liberal vote itself is eroded every election more and more by people that don't want to vote for an archaic right-wing misogynist anti-climate change party, and they've doubled down again. So congratulations to Anthony Albanese for your election win in about a year and a half. The only 2 things that you have to worry about, and it's serious, apart from the fact that the news media in this country will hammer you all the way to the next election. Isn't it nice not having a scandal every week? One is the RBA, and they just don't care. Like, they will put everyone through suffering through these interest rates, and if they don't come down, that's a serious worry. So that's one area you've got to be very vigilant on, and maybe even vocally attacking the RBA over it, because they don't really represent the people. They represent big business, and they should have done their job years ago, and then people wouldn't be going through this. So that's one area, and the other one is the news media will be on your back like no one else and giving Dutton a free pass. But congratulations to Anthony Albanese. I'm calling this one in June 18, June 8, my eyesight's gone in my old age. June 18, 2024, I'm calling the election for Anthony Albanese. And thank you, Peter Dutton. Keep it going.